Hi class, this is a quick demonstration on foreshortening with the figure, and since we can, we're going to use a dog as a model. Much of the same anatomy is true. You still look for similar body parts and you still work in the same manner, from skeletal axis to structural analysis of the upper body connecting to the lower body and the skull, even though it's smaller. And then with foreshortening, what we're going to do is really emphasize the body parts that are sitting in front of the body parts behind, meaning the legs in this area, this shape needs to sit in front of the torso, and this torso needs to sit in front of the rib cage, and then the rib cage needs to cross heavily over the neck, and then the neck crosses over the snout, and then the snout over the back of the head. And this zone back here is the shape furthest behind. So you have to overlap your joints really with a lot of contrast and edge with foreshortening. So you really want to see where the rib cage crosses the torso and the torso over the pelvis. You want to see those edges really emphasized when you draw. Another element is the clear element that most students understand with foreshortening, is that the objects that are closer to you appear larger than the objects further away. So as you work, one of the best things you can start with is establishing with the figure, I call it the coffin, where the body lays back into space into. So when I first start this drawing on the left, you'll notice that I actually start with a plane moving back in perspective. So I'll do that really quick. So right back here, I'm going to start with the front of the plane right here. And then basically the plane moves backwards, like a plank moving back in space. Something like that. Now, if it was a straight plank, it would do this. But Bowie is angling and curving, which I thought was actually really interesting. So instead of that axis being straight, what I'm going to do is follow his skeletal form right there. And it's still really approximate in terms of where the axis moves. If he'd laid straight back, it would have gone back with the plank. But what's important here is that you can see the front of the plank is opening up wide, right? And as you move back, he becomes more narrow, just like a road moving back into the distance in one-point perspective. Now, with a figure, you're almost always going to be working in a one-point perspective. The camera is sitting here in the foreground and looking at Bowie moving away from it, like a road moving away and then converging on a vanishing point. So this is a good way to start. Just lay your plank down, whether that figure is standing or laying. You want to kind of establish that coffin-like plank shape first, and then start moving from there. Then find your skeleton, and then what we can do is quickly establish for you the major volumes of the body as I see it. And you want to work from the back of the body, the shapes furthest away from you, the viewer or the camera, and then move to the foreground last. That way you are building one shape overlapping on top of the previous. So back here we can start with Bowie's head. His snout comes in front. And then I even do the sort of front of the snout there with his ear in the back. We have the neck, and you want to draw these objects even when you can't see them. You know where that neck goes. So draw the whole neck when you begin the drawing, even though that paw is in front. You need to draw through objects like they're transparent. That's why we teach you in observational drawing to draw the entire vase that's sitting in front of whatever is behind it. In this case, draw the cylinder of the neck, even though you can't see that connection point behind the paw. You can guesstimate, and you'll probably be pretty correct. The next big zone is this rib cage. And I'm going to go ahead and just establish a nice big shape first, And then what I did is I tried to find his rib cage. And when you know what you're looking for, there it is. It's just like the shape that the rib cage that we do. Then here's his stomach area, and you can start to see where that kind of creates a little bit of a cylinder shape right there. And go ahead and let this shape overlap that shape. Then we've got the legs coming through and connecting. Okay, I don't need to draw the rest, except right here, because this is sort of the back of him underneath his legs, which are coming in the front. Okay, get those. Okay, and then the last thing I ever do, are the legs, because they're sitting on top of that torso. So then I would come back, right? Just like your hand, his hand breaks into sections too. Okay, and there we have sort of a nice breakdown of his major volumes. So I'm going to go ahead and step this back and let the video play, and I'll kind of explain what I was thinking. So I'll step this back. You guys can see how we're building this up. Okay. Step this back. Okay, so you can see here, just like I did on the Photoshop image of Bowie, I'm establishing those big volumes as they rake across each other, and I'm drawing through each form, okay? So that you can see those cylinders, eggs, cones, your basic shapes. You should be able to find all of those when you're starting. Notice too that I'm using the blue pencil. I really, really like it when I'm doing figure drawing, especially with something complex like foreshortening, is starting with a colored, like a light blue colored pencil. Because I can draw as heavy as I want with this, and I can never get black. So once I'm feeling good about my forms, I'll move away from the blue into a pencil and then into a darker pencil. It's a way of controlling your value. Move this back up. Okay, so what I also want you guys to notice is that along with overlapping forms and small objects moving away and large objects that are coming forward to you in space, another aspect of foreshortening that has to occur is the difference in edge. So if you want an edge to sit in front and come in front of a rib cage or a leg in front of a neck, the object that comes closer to the camera or you has to have the darker edge. It also has to have more detail. So I always start from whatever's furthest back. So in this case, the head was the furthest back. So I started back here and I start working my way forward so that I can start gaining contrast with my value and my edge and my detail. So at the end, the most successful, darkest, highest contrast edges should be up here in the foreground. Okay, so you can see that I'm emphasizing these forms, rib cage sitting in front of the belly breaking along the pelvis meeting the legs. Um, I'm getting the back of the leg in front of the knee, right? This needs to cross heavily in front of the stomach, and detail-wise and value-wise, you want to really emphasize the foreground of the object that you're drawing, the figure, not the background. So if I took this a little bit longer, I would develop even further contrast up here, and maybe even overemphasize these objects even more, slightly to the point where it's unnatural. I kind of lost the legs in my photograph right here, but they're going to be much, much bigger because they're closer to the camera. Okay, hope that was fun. You guys can maybe do a picture of an animal, and then I'm also going to post just a picture of a person. Okay.